Up to now, I've checked out and listened to more than 350 self-help books. At first, I was all about making cash. My goal? Bringing in $10,000 every month. The books I dived into were super helpful in reaching that goal and taught me some major life lessons. In this video, I'm going to share 10 of those lessons with you. Let's start with the first one. Don't live below your means. Instead, expand your means. I think I picked up this tip from Robert Kiyosaki's book, Second Chance. Kiyosaki points out that if you go to a financial advisor, they'll tell you to save money and cut back on expenses, which means giving up things you enjoy, like dining at your favorite restaurant. Kiyosaki asks, why not look at it from a different angle? Why not find ways to make more money so the cost of dinner doesn't even matter? Cutting expenses can kill your passion. Nobody wakes up excited to cut costs here and there just to save a few bucks. Cutting costs isn't inspiring. Focus on earning more. Instead of saying, I can't afford it, say, how can I afford it? Early on, this advice clicked for me for two main reasons. First, I realized there's a limit to how much you can cut costs. There's only so much you can trim. Second, I figured out that my main currency is my energy and time. I can use an hour to save 10 FAs or use the same hour to earn 100s. I know people who keep an Excel sheet and note every single purchase they make during the day, constantly looking for ways to cut costs, hopping from store to save a few bucks and using up their limited willpower to avoid spending $5 on something they love. All this takes a ton of energy, and I think you'd get a better return if you put that energy into making more money. Earning more isn't as scary as it sounds. Earning more just means solving more problems. The more problems you solve, the more you earn. The path to making more money by solving problems goes like this. First, you start with small problems. These are usually personal problems like not knowing something or lacking confidence. Then you move on to bigger ones. Each time you solve a problem, you level up to another problem waiting to be solved. The more money problems you solve, the smarter you get, and the more you earn. It also works the other way around. The more money problems you ignore, the poorer you get. Second, what's the worst that could happen? This lesson isn't from a finance book, but a personal development book called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie. But it's been super useful to me in investing in business overall. As you've probably noticed, most of our worries and stress are about money. For example, what if I invest in this business idea and it fails? What if I put money into this company and lose it all? What if I borrow money and can't pay it back? Whenever I felt fear and worry before making a financial decision, I'd always ask myself, what's the worst that could happen? According to Carnegie, the things we think are really bad usually aren't as bad as we imagine. I totally agree with this and have seen it play out many times in my life. This question calms you down right away and helps you see that even the worst-case scenario isn't that bad. Often you'll find that even if the worst happened, you could handle it. Here's how you can apply this in your own life. First, honestly analyze the situation and figure out what's the worst that could happen. Second, once you know the worst-case scenario, accept it. Accept it as if it's already happened. Third, after accepting the worst, calmly focus your energy and time on solving the problem. Acceptance of what's happened is the first step in overcoming the consequences of any misfortune. One of the worst parts of worrying is that it kills our ability to focus. When we worry, our minds jump all over the place. Acceptance calms us down and lets us concentrate on finding a solution. Fourth, the wrong mountain and the sunk cost fallacy. Imagine you're climbing a mountain and halfway up, you realize you're on the wrong one. The mountain you should be climbing is right next to you, but you messed up. To climb the right mountain, you have to go down, take a break, plan a bit, and start again. Now, what do? If you're like most people, you won't go down, even though you know that's the right thing to do. You'll think, what the heck, it sucks to be on the wrong mountain, but I'm not going down. I've worked so hard to get this far, I can't just throw away all my effort. Plus, the view isn't that bad, so you decide to stay. The reason most of us don't go down the wrong mountain is because of a psychological thing called the sunk cost fallacy. It's the tendency to value the energy we've already invested, or the money we've already spent, and ignore the energy or money we'll lose in the future. In other words, we focus on the past instead of the future. Maybe you're watching this video thinking, if I were on that mountain, I'd go down and start over. Well, let me ask you this. Your parents wanted you to become a doctor, engineer, or lawyer, so you followed their wishes. Now, you're halfway through your studies and you know you're on the wrong mountain, but you keep going. Why is that? You work at a job you hate, but keep doing it and probably will for the rest of your life. Why is that? You're in a relationship you know won't work, but you keep going. You quit smoking and promise not to smoke again. Instead of throwing away the last pack, you hide it somewhere in your room. You get what I'm saying, right? The sunk cost fallacy is one of the most common and dangerous cognitive biases we fall for. Understanding it has made my life so much better. It's tough, but I try my best to ignore the time and money I've already spent and remind myself that the past is the past and doesn't matter for future success. I ask myself this question: starting today, knowing what I know now, would I keep investing in this business or relationship? Does it make sense to stick with this decision starting today or not? If the answer is no, I stop. Honestly, every time it hurt to stop. It was painful to throw away all that work and money, but in the long run, it was worth it. For example, at university, I worked on a thesis for a year and a half and finished over 45% of it, but then realized I was on the wrong path. I extended my studies, tossed out all my work, and started from scratch. Looking back now, it was totally worth it. If I hadn't done it, you wouldn't be watching this video, because my new thesis was about creating this YouTube channel, which is now translated into over 10 languages and has almost 4 million subscribers. It was a business case type of thesis where I researched how to build this channel from scratch and make it profitable. I loved every minute of work I put into that thesis because I knew I would bring it to life. I got a D on that thesis, but I felt like I got an A. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to show off. I'm just giving you a real-life example to show you the great things that can happen if you ignore the sunk costs and decide to climb a new mountain. Fourth, the difference between an asset and a liability. Like many new readers, one of the first finance books I read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The key lesson that stuck with me was the difference between an asset and a liability. Rich Dad defined an asset as something that puts money in your pocket and a liability as something that takes money out. This lesson is super simple but tricky to apply in real life. Rich Dad said getting rich is easy. You just need to do one thing: buy more assets. That's it. If you do that, you'll get rich. After reading the book, I became very aware of every single purchase I made and focused on buying more assets. One asset I bought was a rental property that brought in around $40 in positive cash flow. At that time, I was new to YouTube but already had a few hit videos and was making money from the channel. One day I checked my earnings and noticed one of my videos was making about $40 a month consistently. This was a big moment for me because it made me realize that every single video I create is an asset. Digital real estate, like making videos that bring in cash every month, can be pretty sweet. I had this real estate property that brought in around $40 every month, but it took me months to buy, and I had to put down $12,000 just as a down payment. But making that video, just a few $100 and a lot of fun. That was the moment I started seeing YouTube differently. I began treating every video as digital real estate. This mindset led to more videos and channels in different languages. Lesson 5. Relying on willpower for money management is silly. Automate it instead. A few years back, I was at the bank getting a credit card. If you've used a credit card, you know those interest rates are no joke. As long as you pay it back within a certain period, there's no interest. But miss that free period and bam, you get hit with high interest charges. My bank manager laid it out for me. He said I had two options for paying back the money. Option 1, the cheaper way, was to set a notification on my calendar for the exact day each month and manually pay. Just hit one button and the money gets transferred. Easy peasy, no need to fill in any account numbers. Just set the reminder and hit that button. Option 2 was to automate the payment, but it would cost me around $3 a month. He recommended the first option since it's free and easy. So I thought, why pay $3 a month when I can do it for free? Guess what happened? Over the next 6 months, I forgot to hit that button and paid interest twice. Once $50, the other time 60. Even with a calendar notification, I still forgot. For example, once the reminder came up while I was busy, so I told myself I'd do it later. Later never came. After the second interest payment, I emailed the guy and asked him to automate it. He reminded me about the $3 fee, but I'd already learned my lesson. Here's the takeaway. When it comes to money, whether it's investing, saving for a trip, paying off debt or whatever, if you don't automate it, it probably won't happen. I don't care how strong your willpower is, you'll slip up. This lesson stuck with me, and now I automate as much as possible. Not just finances, but other stuff too, because relying on willpower just doesn't cut it. With money, probably 90% of the battle is psychological and emotional. Automation takes away most of that struggle. Set it once and forget it. So, do your future self a favor and automate things. Lesson 6. The cost of making more money. Everything has a price, but not all prices are obvious. Want to earn a lot, be your own boss, and have a successful business? That's cool. But jumping in without knowing the price is a bad move. Here's what I mean. Imagine I ask if you want to be a pro MMA fighter and join the UFC. Sounds awesome, right? Having those skills and being in killer shape. But after thinking it through, you'd probably say no. Why? Because you know it takes tons of hard work, time, and probably some serious injuries just to be decent, let alone a pro. You turn it down because you don't want to spend hours in the gym every day, sometimes twice a day. You don't want to stick to a strict diet and eat tasteless food most of your life. You don't want to argue with your partner about not spending enough time together. The price is too high. No one would call you crazy or a wimp for turning it down because they get that the cost is huge. This applies to becoming a business owner and making big money too. It's like becoming a top boxer, writer, singer, or doctor. Most of us know it takes years of hard work and study to become even an average doctor. But we don't think the same way about earning more money. We expect it to be quick and easy. We expect it to be painless. For example, you wouldn't expect an out-of-shape guy with no boxing experience to win a fight against a pro boxer. But that's what most of us do when starting a business. Most of us have never run a business or learned about it in school. We come from families with poor financial and business skills. We're like that out-of-shape guy. Yet we expect to start a business, throw a few punches, and win. This is why most people start a business and give up after a few failures, blaming the economy or competition. The truth is, they didn't understand the cost and weren't willing to pay it. If you want to start something, first find out what the cost is and if you're really willing to pay it. Knowing the cost helped me stay patient and be okay with slow progress. When you know what you're doing has a high cost, you don't quit after a few failures. When you understand the cost, you realize you have to create an imbalance in your life and sacrifice family time, friends, and fun to pay that price. You might have seen this picture before. An old couple on vacation, so tired they can't enjoy their boat tour. I'm not making fun of them. I'm showing this because their picture was a huge reminder for me over the years. When I started reading personal finance and investing books, I kept getting this advice. Save a small amount, like $5 a day, and invest it long term, and you'll have over $1 million in 40 years. It's true and makes sense. But I always had this strange feeling after reading that advice. First, I'd get excited about investing a small amount and having $1 million. But then I'd get upset. I'd think, sure, I'll have $1 million, but I'll be old. Do I want to be rich in a wheelchair? Do I want to go on vacation but be too tired to enjoy it? I wanted the $1 million, but not when I'm 70. I wanted a cool car, but not when I need help just getting in it. Then I found this book called The Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco, and it changed everything for me. The book is about getting rich quickly and retiring early by creating a business, inventing something, or making things that can bring in lots of money while you're young. I know get rich quick sounds scammy, but DeMarco doesn't mean getting rich in a few weeks or months. For example, if you build a business, you might work on it for 5 or 10 years, but once you succeed, you might never have to work again. That's his idea, getting rich quick. And if you think about it, 10 years is quick compared to investing for 40 years. Even though this is one of my favorite books and I always recommend it, there's one thing I don't like about it. It kind of makes fun of long-term investing. Creating a business has its costs, and some people are totally happy with their jobs and don't want the stress of running something big. For these folks, having an average salary and investing $5 a day for 40 years might be a good option. I do it too, but I don't count on it to make me rich. I guess it all depends on what you really want. If you want to retire early and never work again, check out this book. But if you're happy with your job and long-term investing, stick with it. But keep in mind that compound interest works its magic over time. For example, 90% of Warren Buffett's wealth came after he turned 50. Warren Buffett is great at investing, but his real secret weapon is time. He's been investing since he was a kid. Back in university, I had this classmate who was always about being realistic. Whenever someone dreamed big or took bold steps, he would reel them back to reality. For instance, if someone talked about studying in the US, he'd say, "Come on, be realistic. You're broke and can't even speak English well. How will you study there?" He wasn't just like this with others. He was like this with himself too. He'd say things like, "I know I'll never drive a fancy Mercedes or have $1 million in my bank." Now don't get me wrong, he was a great guy, nice and dependable. The kind of friend you could borrow money from on a bad day or ask for his jacket for a special event. His only problem? He was a small thinker. He didn't let himself dream big. David Schwartz, in his book, The Magic of Thinking Big, says that big thinkers see what's possible, what could be, rather than just what is. On the flip side, small thinkers only see what's right in front of them. A small thinker will see an old house and think it's worth only $50,000 because it's in bad shape. But a big thinker will look at the same house and see the potential, planting trees, cleaning up the yard, renovating, and think it could sell for $100,000. Simply put, one sees what is, the other sees what could be. Most people don't think big. They don't even let themselves dream big. I'm not saying just thinking big will make everything awesome. It's just the first step, and there are probably 100 more steps after that. For example, let's say you're making $1,000 a month right now and decide to set a big goal, like making $10,000 a month. Once you set that goal and start thinking big, it'll guide you like a GPS. Soon your behavior changes. You'll start reading different books, watching different videos, and maybe even saying no to certain friends. Thinking big leads to doing big things, which then leads to having big things. First, you become the big person you want to be. Then you do the things that big person does. Only then do you have the things that big person has. Most people think the opposite. They say, "Give me the $10,000 a month and then I'll start doing the things that person would do and then I can become that person." It doesn't work that way. You have to become the person first and then the rest will follow. And this can't happen if you don't let yourself think big. I've learned 2 key lessons about thinking big. First, I found that many big goals are actually easier to achieve than small ones. When you set big goals, you realize you can't achieve them alone, so you bring in other people's knowledge and expertise. This makes things easier. But when you set small goals, you think only about what you can do yourself. Second, I realized that the goals I thought were big weren't really that big, and the problems I thought were huge weren't that big either. I was just thinking too small. Vicki Robin, in her book, Your Money or Your Life, says most of us think our job supports our life, but in reality, the job becomes our entire life. Most of us spend over 40 hours a week working to earn money. We spend time getting ready for work, commuting, thinking about work even when we're not there, and needing to relax on evenings and weekends just to forget about work. When you look at it this way, you quickly realize that you're trading your life for money. Money equals life energy. When I started seeing money as my life energy, I became more mindful of how I spent it. Every time I wanted to buy something, I asked if it was worth my life energy. I started seeing prices not in dollars or euros, but in hours or weeks of my life. For example, that new phone I wanted wasn't 800s, but a month of my life spent at a job I didn't like. And I know what you're thinking. This sounds like a way to make yourself feel guilty about every purchase. But that's not it. When you see money as your life energy, you value it more. And when you value it more, you start spending it on things you truly want instead of on a second pair of shoes you'll only wear once. Here's a question for you. What is the price of your life energy? How much is each hour of your life worth? The traditional way to calculate this is to take your net pay and divide it by the hours you work. For instance, if you work 160 hours a month and make $500, divide $500 by 160 and you get $312 per hour. But it's not that simple. To find your real hourly wage, you need to consider other factors, like the time and money spent related to your work. Think of all the money you spend to keep your job, transport costs, eating out, living in an expensive city because that's where your job is, and medical costs due to work-related stress. Deduct all those job-related expenses. That's how you find out what you really earn for each hour of your life energy. The more time goes by, the less I believe in luck in business. Often what people call luck is just the result of taking lots of actions. For example, let's say you and I are looking for an investment property. I check out 10 places, but you check out 100. Who's going to be luckier? Obviously you. But from the outside, it looks like you just stumbled upon a great property. The more actions you take, the better your chances of getting lucky. People who take action get luckier because they create their own luck. This lesson encouraged me to try many things and be okay with most of them not working out. I learned you can be wrong a lot and still be successful. For example, Warren Buffett has owned shares in over 400 companies, but the biggest gains came from just 10 of them. Many big companies get this too. Look at Netflix. They produce tons of series, but only a few become huge hits. When you understand this, you realize it's normal for many things to fail or go wrong. Sometimes all you need is one idea, one book, one sentence, one person, or one video to change your life. Others might think you just got lucky meeting that one person who helped you succeed, but they don't see you probably reached out to 50 people to meet that one. You created your own luck. This was the last lesson, but I've got a bonus takeaway to wrap everything up. I said at the start that I began reading to make more money, but as I went along, I realized it's not just about money. It goes much deeper. For instance, when you start working 15 hours a day to earn more money, you soon realize you're stuck in your room all day and your body and mind are suffering. So you start exercising regularly. Then you realize you need to fix your diet and sleep. You can't eat junk food all the time, go to bed late and still work 15 hours a day. One day you come home from the gym, look at your room and think, I can't believe I live and work in this mess. So you start keeping your space clean and organized. Things improve, but you're still feeling down. That's when you start paying attention to the voice in your head that never shuts up. So you learn about meditation to control that crazy roommate in your brain. You used to laugh at people who talked about spirituality and meditation, but now you're meditating yourself. You learn to control your emotions. You used to get angry over every little thing, but now you let it go. You develop new habits and ditch bad ones like smoking. And since you quit smoking, you stop hanging out with certain friends. Soon you walk and talk differently. You become more confident and stop dressing like an 11-year-old. You start dressing well because you understand how important first impressions are when meeting new business partners. Years pass, you keep improving, and one day you look back and see you've hit your financial goal. But the person standing at the finish line isn't the same person who started. You've gone through a complete personal transformation. You realize what you've achieved is much more than you ever imagined. So what about you? Have you experienced any personal transformations on your journey? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going and inspire each other.